All right, I think we're ready to get underway. First off, my name is Kiefer Court,
And I'm Abigail Stanger.
and we'd like to welcome you to our 2018 AP Government Candidate Forum. We would like to start by saying thank you to all the candidates for participating, Marshall County Daily for filming, MediaCom, and WKMS for coming, the Benton's Woman Club and Benton Juniorette Club for providing and serving desserts for this evening, and everyone in the audience for coming out.
Tonight's proceedings will go as stated. The order of offices will stick to the order of the pamphlet provided. For each office, the candidates will answer 3 questions. Each candidate is allotted 2 minutes to respond to each question with no rebuttal. The order of these responses has already been decided at random, and in addition, this is not an open mic event, and the only questions asked are the ones provided by the AP Government students.
We're going to start out with District 1 Commissioner. The candidates are Joshua Medley and Justin Lamb. Justin Lamb couldn't be here today, so Joshua Medley is up first.
Mr. Medley, your first question is, what new policies or changes in policy do you deem necessary to benefit the county?
I would like to see the county institute a county-wide safety program. Being involved with the water district the past 2 years, I've seen numerous things that isn't allowed by OSHA throughout the county. You see state projects on the side of the road digging large trench boxes, safety hole watches, gas monitoring systems, and that's not something that happens in the county. You see the water districts and the other utilities kind of doing their own thing. They dig ditches, dig holes. Anything below 48 inches is considered a confined space. Anything bigger should be stair-stepped, widened, and most things needs trench boxes. Most of the water districts do not own trench boxes. So I'd like to see a countywide safety program instituted. With that being said, it would need to be countywide because most of the equipment needed would need to be shared because no one entity could probably afford it, nor the necessary funds for training for individual departments. It would go easier and cheaper by being countywide. Although OSHA is the regulating authority, they really don't have any part until something happens. They are the responding agency if something happens. If somebody is caught in a confined space or is hurt on the job, they're going to be the reporting agency on it. So I'd really like to see a better safety aspect to the county and to the county employees.
All right, thank you for that. The next question is, what is one thing you plan to implement in this position that you feel is important?
That's hard to talk about. The roles of the county commissioners kind of drastically changed when the county adopted the fiscal court system. When they did that, the magistrates lost. When they went from magistrates to commissioners, they really lost a lot of their power. So in the wide range of things, I don't want to say it's a clerical position, but it's a position where you're deciding budgets that are presented, funding that's presented. It's not really a day-to-day operations kind of thing. That's left to Judge Neal and the rest of the fiscal court and his office on a daily basis. So instituting that's really a tough one to decide on because the rules and the statutes and the regulations really aren't there. So.
All right, thank you. Your third and final question is, what is your plan to promote any changes to existing taxes?
Again, that's a tough one. Your utility infrastructure isn't really, or your water districts and stuff, you can't implement taxes to do upgrades and repairs. All that funding comes from the districts, and that's by their water sales. Electrical services and stuff, that can be taxed. Other utilities can. But mostly the water and stuff is funded directly from the water sales. So adding taxes on for rejuvenation of utility services, that's a hard one. It really depends on the situation. If it's a costly, something that's going to benefit the community in the long run, I can see where a tax would be appropriate. If it doesn't add jobs or add to the economy, then it's probably not worth it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Medley. We will now move on to Commissioner of District 2 with Kevin Spraggs and Johnny Bolin. All right, Mr. Spraggs, our first question is, what new policies or changes in policies do you deem necessary to benefit the county?
I would like to see our policies involving, a lot of aspects of the county put on the website: employee handbook, disciplinary handbook, purchase order, agreements, everything posted on the website. It can be altered much easier than having it in print, as long as proper notifications sent out to employees and all those involved. Not exactly knowing what's currently in place, which I don't claim to know, that's a little bit difficult, but I do think, I'm 100% for transparency and put everything out there so it's clear for the employees' protection and the county's protection.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spraggs. Your next question is, how will you encourage building and development in the county?
Well, being in the real estate business for the last 20 years, I work with buyers and sellers every day, and start out with two people on most days that disagree on terms, price, etc. And I've been very fortunate to make a living in the business for the last 20 years, and I can certainly use those skills to sit down with business owners and convince them Marshall County is a place to be. We have way too much to offer here not to be excelling. We've got the lake, we've got rail services, riverport, airport, 2 interstates. There's absolutely no reason that I couldn't sit down and convince someone to come here.
Thank you very much for that. Your third and final question is, what is your plans to promote any changes to existing taxes?
Changes to existing taxes. We are pretty heavily taxed in a lot of areas. I was talking to someone today about, our library tax is much greater than our hospital tax, for example. And that would depend on an individual basis, and if a need arises to a certain thing that might warrant that. I'm big on letting the people decide, and possibly having some town halls on something like that. I'm certainly not one that would jump to a tax increase. I would certainly look at all other possible means before any kind of tax increase that I would support.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spraggs. Next, we'll be moving on to our candidates for Commissioner of District 3, which is Monty R. Collins and Dr. Richard Koch.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the AP government for hosting this today.
Thank you, sir. So it appears Dr. Koch is not able to be with us, so Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins, your first question is, what new policies or changes in policy do you deem necessary to benefit our county?
Well, I would say this, agree with the others, not being the incumbent, not being on the fiscal court currently, and having all of those policies necessarily at my fingertips. What I'd like to do is just tell you, a little background. My experience, I'm the current 2018 president-elect for the Kentucky Barkley Lakes Board of Realtors. I've been the chamber president, the chamber treasurer, been on a board of the State Financial Institutions Board, Adoption Bridges of Kentucky, which is a state board. What I would say is, going into that, I did not have a set of policies available at that time either. But it was not a disadvantage. My wife, if she was here, she's not able to be here tonight. They're playing volleyball. My kids are playing volleyball tonight, but would tell you I'm a very deliberate thinker. I like to get those policies, truly go through each and every one. And what I can guarantee you is this. that I will put some serious thought into each and every one of those. If they do not benefit this county, then the answer, because we've always done it that way, is just not a valid answer to a question, especially about current policies. And so what I would say is any policy needs to be transparent, and anything that has to do with being more efficient is a policy that I'll look at.
Thank you very much. Our second question is, how will you encourage building and development in the county?
Well, again, like Kevin, I'm a realtor myself. We deal with infrastructure issues on a daily basis. I have properties that don't have water, that they're either on a well or would have to be on a well. Some that are in places that you would think would have internet that don't have internet, and it is an issue. It's absolutely an issue to development. If you have that and there's no possible way to get water other than a well, it's an issue that you definitely have to address. You definitely have to sell around, at least as a realtor. We have that same issue as it comes to businesses moving in here. I was a commercial lender at one time. Now, being in real estate, I know what businesses are looking for, and I know what we have that makes it the reason that they do come here. And so I think, I'll be honest with you, I think my job is selling Marshall County on a daily basis. So I've been doing that for a number of years in real estate, and I feel like that past experience, that past experience on different boards and management and banking and leadership roles will be an asset to our fiscal court.
All right, thank you, Mr. Collins. Your third and final question is, what is your plan to promote any changes to existing taxes?
Well, I'm obviously on the left side, but the red, so I'm a conservative Republican. I'm definitely not a tax and spend guy. But what I would say is this, as it relates to new taxes, that I've found anyway from being a taxpayer, I know how I feel when I hear something about a new tax, is we're mostly upset about it because we feel like government has been so inefficient with our dollars, and that's not specific to Marshall County, but on a federal and state level, that's definitely the case. And so we're more upset, to be honest with you, that our money's not being spent than it is necessarily that tax increase. And so I do feel like if we are doing everything we can to make sure that our spending is efficient, and we're relaying that transparently to the people of Marshall County, and we have to, as a last resort, increase some type of tax, that it would be a whole lot more understandable. But I would tell you this, that would be my last and third option to increase taxes. The things we need to do is make sure that our county government is working efficiently, that those monies are being spent like they should. And then secondly, the infrastructure, economic development, we need to be working on more economic development to bring businesses in here that will increase our revenue so that we don't need new taxes. And then if, God forbid, all of that is done and we still have to, that again, if we're spending that money efficiently, then a tax increase would be valid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collins. We are now going to move on to Commonwealth Attorney, and the candidates are Dennis Faust and Mark Blankenship. Mark Blankenship could not be here today, so it's just Dennis Faust.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Faust, for being here.
I want everybody's votes.
All right, Mr. Faust, your first question is, what is the most important to you, the job, justice, or the truth?
The job, justice, or the truth?
Yes, sir.
The job probably is the least important. Justice and truth are equally important. As having been judge in Marshall and Callaway counties from 1997 until 2015, I always tried to make sure that justice was dispensed through our court system. I guess I ought to be looking in this direction. But truth is equally important. You can't have justice without getting the truth. If you are able to get the truth, then justice will take care of itself. Now, I realize that sometimes the court system creates bad results. One of the reasons that I wanted to get back into the system is I see things that I think aren't happening that need to happen. And part of that is having, as Commonwealth's attorney, making sure that cases are properly investigated and that they are prosecuted in an appropriate manner. Consistency is so important. As judge, I always tried, if two people were similarly situated, it didn't make any difference as to who they were, where they came from, but in similar situations, they need to be treated the same. As Commonwealth's attorney, I will prosecute in such a way that we will treat all people fairly. We will be seeking justice, but I think, again, justice and truth do come in together, hand in hand, and they're equally important. And I'm out of time on that question.
Thank you for that, sir. Our next question is, what are the problems that you wish to solve to better our state in your role as Commonwealth Attorney, and how do you plan to solve them?
Okay. I wish I could say there was one problem that I was seeking to solve. That's not the case. There are multiple problems. In looking at our court system, there are numerous things that we have to address. We have a substance abuse problem. It needs to be addressed. Now, it's simple to say, oh, we're going to attack the drug abuse system or the drug abuse problem. We need more treatment facilities. There's no question about that. By the same token, as a prosecutor, I have to look at prosecuting the source of substance abuse issues. We have to treat that. That is as much of a problem as the side where we have addicts. Do I think that by incarcerating addicts that we are going to solve all of our problems? No, the answer to that is no. We have good people who get on a bad path. It's a path of self-destruction. We need to help those people, and we need to have policies in place where we can help those people. By the same token, we have to enforce the laws that we have with respect to those who are providing illegal drugs, things of that nature. But that's only one small part of the areas that I wish to address. If I'm elected Commonwealth's attorney, I will be going forward with what I call my prime initiative. It's entitled Preparation, Restoration, Innovation, Motivation, and Education. You can see more about that on my website, dennisfaust.com, where I have explained that. It's something that I take seriously, and I have a plan to address all of our problems.
Thank you, Mr. Faust. Your third and final question is, what challenges do you expect to face most often if you were to become Commonwealth Attorney?
Oh, the challenges are immense. The challenges are daily. They start with the fact that I barely got into the issues that I want to deal with, starting with substance abuse. That's just one small part. One small part. I was looking online this evening, and I saw where a person had been charged with child abuse, third offense, and there were people commenting on Facebook that not only would they like to dispense frontier justice toward that individual, but they were asking questions about, well, what did the judges do? Well, having been a former judge and being a retired judge, I also looked at the article and saw that the judges did what they were set to do, which is they sentenced that person to prison. They were either paroled or ultimately probated. But the challenges in this job come from the fact there are so many areas that have to be addressed. The number of cases that we're having, crime is going up. So we're going to have to be more efficient. We're going to have to be innovative. Those are the challenges that I see. It's very simple. There's a whole lot being thrown at the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, and I feel like I can handle that. Again, by using innovative methods, by educating, helping our law enforcement officers, knowing what they need to do. It's a simple fact that we have to let everybody know what's going on. If we can educate and also motivate people to do what they need to do, and it starts with me, I'll be hands-on.
Thank you, Mr. Faust. Now we will be moving on to the position of coroner.
I would like to thank the AP Government class for putting this forum on.
Thank you, sir. Our next position, as we get reset up, is for the next position is for coroner. The two candidates for coroner this election are Barry Dean Taylor and Michael D. Gordon. Mr. Taylor cannot be with us today.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for hosting the event. And I was telling Mr. Carrick that I was a history honorary student and political science. And so without a job, I became a nurse and a nurse practitioner. So, so anyway.
Thank you for that. Our first question is, how will you balance the duties of the coroner's office with the limited budget resources from the county?
Well, basically is that when you run for an office and you kind of have to know what you're expected, the office of the coroner is a 24/7, and the deputy coroners that we have, and it's a 24/7 job. One should not throw their hat into this ring if they don't expect to receive the compensation that the fiscal court has so set out. So if I have to work 2 or 3 days where I've missed my regular job, then I'll have to do that because my commitment to the county, because when I applied for this job, when you hire me, you expect me to do the job if I'm getting less wages than what the other coroners get, or if I'm getting more wages than some coroners get. So it's expected to do the job.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Gordon. Your second question is, what is one thing you plan to implement in the position that you feel is important?
You know, the thing is that with the position of the coroner, and a lot of times the last 100 or 120 years or so, we've always had a person that was tied in with the funeral directors or undertaker. And so a lot of people kind of get tied into the believing that, or understanding that the whole entire bereavement issue is related to the coroner's office. And the coroner's primary duty, and I cheat if I may, but it's a KRS, and if anybody wants, I only printed 3 of them, it's like 8 pages, but the LRC of the entire coroner's office, but it's the primary cause is the determination of the cause of death, and they have the full enforcement of law enforcement that the coroner does. So far as doing the things that the coroner is expected to do, you know, we have to do the law enforcement. We have to do the investigations of the death. And that's where my medical training comes in. My medical training, I believe, it makes me by far more qualified because of I have to know what labs to order. Several people have talked about the drugs and drug abuse, but there's certain particular job or lab tests we have to order, and I'm about out of time on that one. But I also want to talk about the fact that I want to create a community care program, and I can tell you more about that, and that's for bereavement of people who are coroner cases. I personally walked that path with my brother when he died at 22.
All right, thank you very much. Our third and final question is, what experiences do you have that qualify you for the position?
Okay, thank you. One of my primary experiences, what I truly believe that sets me apart from my opponent, is my 24 years of healthcare experience, dealing with day in and day out healthcare. I've been a hospice nurse. I've been in trauma. I've done the CDC program. I was, me and another team was flown to Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina so that we could offer emergency relief. So I have been an integral part of healthcare for now 24 years. So I believe that then later I got my master's degree, became a nurse practitioner or APRN. And the thing is that for instance, I mentioned earlier about labs. Heroin only stays in the system about 6 hours from the time of death. So if there's an immediate death and when it's a witness death, and if we think there's drugs involved, we need to order certain labs. And but going back to real briefly is that I wanted to just real briefly talk about the community care program for coroner cases. We all had a trauma in this county. 1972 or so, we had Jeff Bennett. We had Margaret Walker. We had Charlie Conrad. We had Ronnie Gordon. We had David Gordon. We had Margaret Bell. We had so many others in my generation that have died. Some died in fistfights. Some died in car wrecks. And every single one of those was a coroner case. And every single family, every single friend had to deal with that immediate, oh my God, I've lost my loved one. And we all was traumatized. Everybody here experienced their own trauma. And I would tell you that when you walk a coroner's case, regardless of what I do, but the community, the family, the friends, it's a whole different experience than when I walked people through the death process in hospice. So my community care program is designed to help people in that situation.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. That rounds out coroner, and next we're moving on to county judge executive. Our two candidates for this position are Mr. Will R. Coursey and Mr. Kevin Neal. Since this is the first position we've had where both candidates have been present, I would just like to explain again. The order in which they will be answering these questions has been randomized, and we have the list right here. So our first question is for Mr. Will R. Coursey. Mr. Coursey, what will be your budgetary priorities for the county?
Well, thank you. And first of all, let me thank the AP class for having this event. It's great to be with so many young people that are interested in public service and civics. And I think I can speak for Judge Neal and all of the candidates here tonight when we say thank you again for having us. In terms of the budget, you really don't know until you get in there. One of the concerns that I have in terms of the budget is the amount of obligated dollars that we have out there. We've probably got somewhere between $10 and $12 million that are obligated in projects right now. And so, I'm going to have to see what our debt ratio is. But the budget is something that I'm no stranger to. Folks, I've served in the Kentucky legislature for some 10 years now, over a decade. And, the county budget is somewhere around $20 million. It's a significant amount of money. But in terms of the state's budget, when you add in the state revenues and also the federal dollars that you take in, it's somewhere around $60 billion. That's 60 billion with a B. So, the budget is something that is very concerning to me. It's something, again, that I'm no stranger to working on. And, again, I look forward to taking office and seeing, what we have to work with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coursey. Now we are going to ask Mr. Neal to answer the same question, which was, what will be your budgetary priorities for the county?
Appreciate it, AP class. This is the third year I think I've participated, so I think it's a great job you're doing, and appreciated Coach Carrick for allowing them to participate. Let me just, with this question, let me just explain to you what I've done over the past not even 3 years. The first thing I did when I sat down with the budget is I went line by line. We looked at the dollars in each line. One of the first things I realized is that a budget committee would be something that more people sitting at the table making the decision. So we have 5 people in that budget committee. It's more transparent. It leaves me to be transparent so that you as a taxpayer can see where your dollars are being spent. One of the things that I'm proud of is that the budget is not just an annual thing that you look at. We have to look 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And currently, the budget that we have, we're actually looking at purchasing a 300-acre industrial site. We couldn't have done that without budgeting and being fiscally responsible over the past 3 years. We saw that coming. We saw that opportunity being presented to Marshall County. We needed to be prepared for that. And this week, hopefully there'll be some good announcements to showcase what we've done with our budget. Sanitation expansion. You've heard me talk about this for the past 2.5 years. The thing about sanitation is that there's developers that are already coming to my office asking how far is that going to get to them so that they can develop their properties. So sanitation, we budgeted to get the districts to where they need to be. Effects on the pension. All right, so there are going to be effects to the budget. Again, looking 4 years down the road, when that 48% hits our budget, the 12% increase this annual year was about $120,000. By year 4, 48% is going to be well over $800,000. So as we budget to grow, we also have to budget for those deficits that are coming our way. But I just want to expand upon the fact that a budget committee with more people sitting at the table, it's a team effort, and it's really helped us move this county forward.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Like I explained earlier, since we have both candidates present, we have randomized the order. So for this next question, we'd like to ask Mr. Neal to have the first response. The second question is, how do you plan on attracting new businesses and encouraging economic growth in Marshall County?
Great question, and it just ties into the budget. Today, the IDA board, which is the Industrial Development Authority, met with the RFPs that they sent out. They identified a local bank to carry the debt service for the county for the purchase of the Southwest 1. It all ties in together. County growth, it's a team effort. You know, developers taking interest with the sanitation expansion is going to grow the county. There's parts of the county, and this is a big county, but we're talking about Aurora, Draftonville with the sanitation expansion. Those communities are going to start growing. The biggest thing that I can share with you is the partnerships that I've had developed. We're bringing $1.1 million to the table for the purchases of this industrial park. It was with PACRO. It's with Delta Regional Authority. It's with the PRP funds that we've got coming in. It's with the City County Industrial Authority, getting those dollars to the table. So $1.1 million to the table to help us purchase this property. And then the House Bill 114 that just passed, the TVA in lieu of tax. That's going to be an annual $150,000 that we can use for the debt service. The goal for the growth for this county is so that it's not your tax dollars, it's those dollars that we bring that are actually paying the debt service and making this happen, so then that we can put monies back into the industrial site so that more companies will come. As those companies come, jobs are created. We get revenue off of those companies that come into our communities, and then there's the secondary effect with those companies coming in, and I think that's important. You know, here's something too. We sat down with the IDA board. 2 years is our go. That was our go to purchase this property. We're probably going to do it in 8 months, and that's because the team that we've got in place, moving this county forward, being able to look 2, 3, 4 years down the road with our budget is helping this county grow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. Now, Mr. Corsi, we are going to ask the same question, which is, how do you plan on attracting new businesses and encouraging economic growth in Marshall County?
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I have a proven record of working with business and industry, of building and of creating jobs. I was proud to partner with Kentucky Governor Steve Beshear a number of legislative sessions ago when we crafted the Kentucky Reinvestment Act, which allowed a number of our local plants and within our industrial community to expand and to retool and to grow their business, to creating more jobs. We did that with Lubrizol. We did that with Sekisui. We did that with Westlake Monomers. We did that with Gradal Maristeel. Unfortunately, they weren't able to hold out. But I have a proven record of working with our businesses, with our plants. You know, our industrial complex in Calvert City means so very much to us. It is the primary driver and engine behind this community. So many wonderful jobs, breadwinning jobs that are there at those plants. So we have to do everything that we can, not just, you know, when you're talking about economic development, you're not just talking about bringing in and recruiting new jobs. You have to maintain those breadwinning jobs that you already have. That's incredibly important. Something else that's important in attracting new jobs is you have to have policymakers that get along, who are willing to talk to one another. Such isn't the case here in Marshall County. Our county judge executive doesn't get along with our local officials, with our mayors, and when industry looks to move into a site, to locate in a site, that's one of the first things that they look at. Because when your policymakers don't get along, that affects the bond rating, that affects a number of things. They do not want to recruit or to locate industry where leaders aren't getting along. Obviously, the Pony Express wouldn't want to locate between properties separating the Hatfields and McCoys, and unfortunately, that's what we have here in Marshall County at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coursey. We'd like to ask Mr. Neal to answer first again. And the third and final question is, what are your top 3 priorities for the county?
The first priority, actually, it just came this fiscal year. It was brought to my attention that we have a failing communication system, and I'm sure the sheriff candidates may speak on that. But we have communication when we're talking about our first responders is that's their lifeline. And our infrastructure with our communication is in dire need. It's about a $1.3 million project. I had a specialist come out of New Hampshire to do a communication survey. We have 60% currently or less communication coverage in this county. With that survey, it's going to bring it up to about 96% coverage. So that is a priority. Those men and women that are out there that depend on that communication, I don't think anybody's going to argue that it's not a priority. I'm going to go back to economic development. It's a priority. And talking with local companies, hopefully we have a big announcement with an existing company that's going to expand. So economic development is a continuous thing throughout the years, and you just don't have a plan annually. You have to plan for it for multiple years to come. And then obviously water and sanitation. We've discussed this for years. I just sat down with the chairman of Jonathan Creek this morning. The project for the Brewers expansion is going to start next week. That project, the fiscal court, we took it upon ourselves to fund that project for that district. It'll pick up about 18 to 20 new customers. They have some water tower and brewers that annually is losing about $45,000 to $50,000. So new customers will help there. The biggest thing with these priorities, and it all ties in, is budgeting. You have to be able to budget and forecast it. And I've got the experience over the past 3 years. I've demonstrated that, and I will continue to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. Now we're going to our final question with Mr. Coursey, and it is, what are your top 3 priorities for the county?
My top 3 priorities for the county. Okay. Number 1, as I said, I've got to get into that office and see what's going on. You know, being the challenger, not being the sitting incumbent, there's a lot that I need to know and learn about our financial conditions. As I said in the first question, you know, my response, wasn't nearly as long because, to be very candid with you, I don't know what kind of obligations that we have out there right now. But my number one priority, folks, is to just start out by getting along, by working with the other elected members of the fiscal court, by working with our sheriff and our 3 mayors. You know, I'm fortunate to have the endorsement of well over 90% of our local elected officials. And that's because they know they can trust me. We've worked together for a number of years now. They know we can get along. They know when they pick up that telephone that I'm going to be on the other end there. I might not always have an answer for them, but I'm certainly willing to listen, and I'm certainly willing to help. That's not the situation right now. We're lacking unity, my friends. We're lacking kindness, simple kindness, the things that we learn in kindergarten, just to be very honest with you, how to share and just to get along. And that's the first thing that we have to do, is change the culture within our courthouse, and that is by working together and bringing more unity to this county. I have a proven record of working across the aisle with Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike to bring home the bacon and to produce for this county and for this district. And I look forward to doing that as county judge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corsi and Mr. Neal. We're now going to move on to School Board District 3 with Lee Ann Robinson-Kinnis and Randy Travis.
All right, thank you, candidates. Ms. Kinnis, you will be answering first. The first question is, what are your biggest concerns for the 2019 spring semester and the 2019-2020 school year?
My biggest concerns for our school right now are just to maintain an educational excellence and the safety of our schools and our children. That's my main concerns. We need to work together. We can accomplish anything as a team, but not as individuals. So I'm not there to just, not wanting to be there to be just an individual. I want to be there for everybody because it's about the children. Some other concerns that I have is the security at all the schools. Right now, I have 2 children at the high school, and I know that it is very well, security is very well taken care of right now. But the issues that are around us now are not just at the high school. Things are happening at middle schools and at elementary schools. And we, as a community, as a school system, we need to make sure that we are doing our part to keep all of our children safe.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kinnis. Now we have the same question for you, Mr. Travis. What are your biggest concerns for the 2019 spring semester and the 2019-2020 school year?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the AP class and Coach Carrick. I've served on the school board for 18 years in District 1 and also in District 3. My main concern right now is safety. We have a big campus. We try to keep it secure, but we also have a lot of openness. We have football fields, soccer fields, and stuff that are concerns of mine about how we keep them safe, how we keep our bus drivers safe, how we keep our children safe. That is one of the main concerns I have right now. Another one is teachers. We have a lack of kids going into this profession. We struggle getting subs to come and teach. That's something we need to improve on. Pay raises for teachers, get their pay raise up to where it needs to be. Another concern I have is funding. I know we don't want to raise taxes. I'm a taxpayer. I try not to raise the tax, but for instance, transportation is only 55% funded from the state. Kindergarten is only half-day funded. We pay full for the whole funding for full days of kindergarten. Our textbook is not funded. So as we see our tax dollars or our funding from the state level go down, we have to raise it locally, and that's concerning of mine. So we've got to work better at those 3 things. I know the school, the high school right now, I'm proud of what we're doing out there as far as safety, and but we can never stand by and be complacent. We got to make sure that we keep our children safe. That's what we're here for.
All right, thank you, Mr. Travis. You will be responding first to the next question. And the next question is, what changes in the Marshall County school system do you wish to see take place in the next 5 years?
Well, as far as my plans, the facility plan, we put a facility plan together, and that's made up of local people, administrators, teachers, superintendent. We've got ourselves in pretty good shape right now. We're good. As soon as we get Sharp, the high school renovated, and Jonathan, I think our school, our facilities will be in good shape for 15 years. As far as looking ahead, I'd like to see better test scores, improving test scores. I'm not in favor of the way our testing is even done. It seems like we don't get our children ready for the real world. We are so concerned about passing the test. And so we've got some things that we need to be doing. Now, a lot of this stuff we have our hands tied, but our local legislators stuff, we talk to them. But I'm proud of Marshall County. The 18 years I've served on it, and the people prior to me serving has done a good job, and I think we're in good shape for the next 15 years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Travis. Ms. Kinnis, what changes in the Marshall County school system do you wish to see take place in the next 5 years?
Right now, as far as the education, I don't see any short-term fixes, but thinking into the future, of course, the security of all the schools, which I've already mentioned. We need to get security at the middle schools and the elementary schools and the high school. It is better. It is a lot better. One thing that I agree with Mr. Travis on is our test scores are not where they should be. Our students are the smartest and brightest kids around, and they should be top-notch scores. One thing that I would like to look into more is the project-based learning. I don't know enough about it to make a judgment, but I feel like our scores have gone down since we've started that. So that's something that I would want to discuss, with the board and with teachers and with parents. As a parent myself, I see good and bad with it. My children are left a lot of times doing a lot of the work on their own and for other students, and those other students get the grade that my students worked so hard for. So that's something that I would like brought to the table as far as a group to discuss and to learn more about and to see how we can improve on.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnis. We'd like to ask you to respond first to the final question. And that is, teachers and students are possibly affected the most by board policies. How will you stay connected to each group?
Well, to be involved in our community, be involved with our businesses, stay completely up to date with our educators and our parents and our students. If it wasn't for our parents, we wouldn't have those students. And if it wasn't for the students, we wouldn't have our job. So we need to find out their needs.
Thank you very much. And our final question for the school board district goes to Mr. Travis. And how will you stay connected to teachers and students in this community?
The involving stakeholders, to me, is involving the community, getting more of our community members involved with our school system is crucial. We want more input as school board members. We are available 24/7 to take phone calls. We invite the community and get themselves involved in our site base. We get students in our citizens to get involved in with everything that we can as far as we have certain committees that we'd like more participation in. And but as a school board member running for it, you should be available for your district 24/7.
All right, thank you, Mr. Travis and Ms. Kinnis. At this time, we'll move on to the sixth and final position that we will be covering tonight, and that is sheriff. Our two candidates for sheriff are Mr. Eddie McGuire and Mr. Kevin Byers. Due to randomization, we'd like to ask Mr. McGuire to answer the first question. Mr. McGuire, your question is, as Sheriff of Marshall County, how will you benefit the county and its judicial department?
In its judicial department, I believe it's been hammered to death tonight with Judge Faust and others, but the drug epidemic is our biggest problem. Adjudicating that, we've got a plan to add some drug units to the drug division. I think you'll see the difference between our platforms is I can deliver on mine without asking for any more money. Being financially responsible, I can reorganize our budget, and I can guarantee you by January 30th, we'll have another drug unit into the drug division to help adjudicate and to help cut down on our drug problem.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGuire. Kevin Byers, we would like to ask you the same question. As Sheriff of Marshall County, how will you benefit the county and its judicial department?
As has been stated by Mr. Faust and by Mr. McGuire, we do have a huge drug issue here in our county. And it's not just Marshall County, it's all over this state. It's not an easy answer. Some good work has been done. Judge Faust started drug court. That is a good program. We encourage that. Matter of fact, one of our guys sat on the board for that governs that helps to move that along. The repeat business after going through drug court is very low, so it works. It's proven to work. Yes, adding more officers into our drug unit, that is something that I am planning on doing as well. Traditionally, what I do throughout the term is look and see where we're spending our overtime monies, and I have added and grown our office by looking at that. And if I can find at least 1 to 2 positions and cut back our overtime and not work our guys to death, that's exactly what we do. And that's exactly what I've done over the last 12 years. If we have grown our office and added officers, and yes, that is a growing problem in our county, and putting more drug officers out there in different ways will help that. And we will work with the court systems, like the judge said. The users, that's really not the ones we want to target. We want to try to help those people. We're going after the dealers themselves. That's where we've got to stop it. Get it coming into our county, stop it from coming into our county to where it poisons our children and poisons all of our people here in our county.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Mr. McGuire, we'd ask you to respond first to the next question again. As you are pursuing this position, as you assess the department right now, would you keep it the same? And how, if not, how would you change it?
Well, the personnel would stay the same. I know I've worked there the last 10 years, so up until January. So I know what needs to change, and I know what needs to stay the same. Rearranging the budget's number one. We got to take the boat off the water when it's not needed. That frees up the unit to go to the drug division. I feel like we need to localize and take care of Hardin and Gilbertsville with the added drug units. We get 12 hours of overtime. Hardin scrapes up on their limited budget to give us to work specifically in Hardin. And I feel like we're not using that money appropriately to fight the drug problem in Hardin, who needs it most. I was walking around asking for people's votes in Hardin last week, and just in 30 minutes' time, knocking on 10 doors, I knew of 2 suspected drug trafficking houses. So it's just a matter of getting to the people, knowing, and they'll tell you everything you need to know if you just ask them.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGuire. Now, Mr. Byers, we're going to, if you assess the department right now, would you keep it the same? If not, how would you change it?
It's not stayed the same for the last 12 years. We have made changes. That is our end goal, is what can we do to make it better? You know, if you stay the same course of action, you stagnate, you get stale. I'm always looking for new ideas. That's why I travel all over this state. I am a board of director of the Kentucky Sheriff's Association. When I go to the association meetings, I look for new ideas. I ask those people from all over the state, what works for you? Can you share with me what works for you? And I try to bring those ideas back. Plus, I do listen to the workforce. If they have some changes to make, I welcome that. I don't shut that out. I'm not closed-minded. We have made changes over the years, and some of those changes have come from within the guys in the office. So I'm always looking to change and make things better. That's the end goal, is what can we do to make our office better, to serve this community in the best way possible that we can, to serve our people, to secure our people, make our people feel safe, and not only our people feel safe, but the tourism dollars that come in to this county make those folks feel safe as well, because that's a huge, huge part of our economic, monetary value of this county, is not only the plants at Calvert City, but tourism is awfully huge for the monies that comes into this county. So we want to make those people feel safe as well.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. The final question for both of you would like to ask Mr. Byers to answer first. It is, the Sheriff's Department has a history of high visibility in our community. How will you improve the relationships between the department and the people in order to stay better informed and proactive?
I'm always looking for new ideas to do that. One of the new ideas that I brought back from the last Sheriff's Conference a couple, 3 years ago was, the Facebook page. I can tell you, I was very skeptic of opening up a Facebook page because I could see some pitfalls to it. But that hasn't been the case. It has been a very valuable tool for the Marshall County Sheriff's Office, using technology to get the information out to the folks, to answer questions. I have an open door policy. You come into the sheriff's office, if I'm there, if I'm not out on a call, or if I'm not on, out for the sheriff's office or sheriff's association meeting or any kind of meeting, sit down and talk with me. You're more than welcome in my office at any time. That's how I learn. That's how I know what's going on in the county. That's how we formulate what we need to do to better protect our citizens. So that is the one thing that I've always prided myself on, is I always listen. And that's the key to anything, is you listen to your folks. They will tell you what is needed and tell you how to go about to maybe implement that, get ideas from them, and make them stakeholders within the sheriff's office. If you're a plank owner, you're going to show more pride and show more enthusiasm in what we're doing and help what we do, because information drives our business. If it isn't information-based, then we can't do our job.
Thank you very much, Mr. Byers. And our final question of the day goes to Mr. McGuire, and is the same question: how will you improve the relationships between the department and the people in order to stay better informed and proactive?
I think that was a different question. Same. Could you repeat it then?
Yes, sir. The Sheriff's Department has a history of high visibility in our community. How will you improve the relationships between the department and people in order to stay better informed and proactive?
Well, I do agree with the sheriff about the visibility. That's why I would take the boat off the water during the weekday and put it out while our recreational boaters are out there on the weekend. We can do that for a fraction of the cost. Another thing about visibility, we're going to launch a school bus marshal program that we can use for no cost to the public. We have what's called a special deputy that we can entail people that are veterans, retired law enforcement who aren't in the business anymore, who can get out and who can ride those school buses, and we can take that school safety to the next level. We can have up to 10 special deputies in Marshall County. Now, we're not going to put just Uncle Billy out there on a school bus, unless Uncle Billy's, a retired Marine or retired law enforcement, and we're going to put them through rigorous training. So improving our visibility, we actually need to get to the point where we can take a call on Facebook. We need to have someone monitoring Facebook 24 hours a day, because when I was at the sheriff's office, I was a Facebook monitor. So when we got answers in, we got tips all the time. As soon as somebody would, if we would post a press release about a wanted subject, within minutes, questions are coming in. Hey, I know where this one's at. I know where that one's at. We need to make it to where we monitor that Facebook page 24 hours a day.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire and Mr. Byers. That concludes our last position for our candidate forum today. We would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We'd like to thank the library for letting us use their meeting room, the Benton Women's Club and the Juniorettes they've provided desserts and refreshments. You're allowed to take them with you if you'd like to. The remaining candidates that we have will be here tomorrow night, and those are candidates running for Benton City Council, County Attorney, State Representative of District 6, and State Senate District 2. And that will start at 6 p.m. And we'd also like to thank Miss Susanna French and Mr. Danny Holt for helping us contact our candidates. Once again, we want to thank the Marshall County Daily, MediaCom, and WKMS for covering our forum. So we hope to see you guys out tomorrow. Thank you.